to me, what gets me up is, am I pushing my limits? Am I growing? Am I exploring the edges? Am I finishing on empty? Can I say I did my best? The only regrets I have in life are the things I didn't go for. I don't regret when I went for something and got injured or failed or screwed up. I learned from those. I really think only failure is the failure to try.
Welcome to another episode, but a very special episode today of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. I have a good friend of mine on. We kind of go back a couple years, and we were introduced by a mutual friend named Chris Ty and Phil. And I know I'm going to mess up your last name because I do it every time. So I'm going to let you say it because it's this weird Canadian Euro-French name. I don't know. Kornachuk.
It's a hockey name. You nailed it. I mean, I have zero corrections. It's totally phonetic. Just has a lot of K's in it. Kornachuk.
A lot of K's, a lot of consonants. I remember as a little kid, conjunction, junction. Kind of reminds me of that when I think of your name, you know?
I spelt it wrong till I was 12.
Did you?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Canada, you guys aren't really big on the educational system from what I hear. But anyways, take your hits.
Fit in where you get in.
That's right. That's right. Well, Phil, man, first of all, brother, it is really good to see your face, man. I can't say enough about sometimes you cross humans that are just good people, and you are definitely one of them. So it's good to see you, first of all, man.
Yeah, right back at you. Likewise. It's good to connect.
So if you could just, you can give the high level 30-second bypass of who you are and what you do, and then we're going to kind of start digging in and massaging that a little bit. Who is Phil?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, Phil has 8 kids. So I think dad is, like, when you look at priorities and roles, that's pretty high up there. So, hey, father, husband, former soldier, currently a business owner, and really just trying to find that space and opportunity to make a positive impact, wherever we're at, whether that's huge or whether that's one-on-one connection with the barista who, threw your coffee at you this morning. I run a company called Stonewater Training. We do leadership development with individuals and teams. And, about once a quarter, we'll do these kind of epic expeditions. Just got back from Switzerland from running one with all these different leaders coming together, really seeking to kind of elevate on the personal mastery level as well as how they lead. And I came to all this from, my background was kind of pretty slow start in life. And then I came into the military and I started in the Canadian Army. And I'll let you kind of think of some good Canadian Army jokes there. There was only 11 of us. We had 4 guns. You can start with that. Then I came down to the U.S. Army, largely because the commercials in the early 90s were awesome. And I served in the Rangers. I was a Green Beret, served in some other organizations, and really learned a ton about, personal mastery, leadership, performance, and leadership and performance under fire and under the most stressful circumstances there. And since then, I've kind of carried that forward into my company, Stonewater Training, and found those same principles work, whether you're, running a mid-sized business in Fort Collins, Colorado, or you're an NFL player for the Seahawks, or you're running a nonprofit or real estate development, kind of all these different fields. So it's been awesome. The principles are universal, and I love working on them myself and working with others on them too.
That is, again, first of all, thank you for your service and everything that you've done. And I know, a little bit more in depth about your story. And it's nothing short of incredible that you would be willing to do so much and for such a selfless act. And I got to say, it's heartwarming. And I think more people need to hear these kinds of stories. Not to get political in any way, but I think the world just needs good humans, right? And I think we need to hear these good stories about good humans. And we don't need to go down the path of loss and sadness. But when someone introduces you, just like you did, and we talk about all the accolades, if I asked who you are without the resume, and you kind of said it about the dad, but what would you say? Who are you? Who is Phil without what you just said?
Yeah, I think for me to answer that goes back to like purpose, right? It's not just who, but why. Like, why am I on this side of the grass today? September 18th, 2025. Why am I here? I'm someone who, really wants to connect with others, inspire them to be a better version of themselves, whatever they are, whether that's my kids, whether that's my partner, whether that's people I work with in a business front or people I casually meet. Connect and inspire is like really central to who I am. Second piece, and this actually does tie a bit back to my background in the military, is, did that for decades, deployed 12 times during all, Afghanistan, Iraq, Philippines, Africa, whatnot. And always tried to do good. Wasn't sure we always left it better than we found it. Frankly, we didn't sometimes. And so I've sort of told myself, who am I? I want to be someone that wherever I'm at, I'm making kind of that positive impact. I'm doing good where I'm at, whether that's a tiny thing, whether it's a bigger thing, promoting the good and kind of building that. So thirdly, on a selfish level, we were both talking about this before you hit record, is I want to push my limits. I want to explore the boundaries. I want to see what I'm capable of. Now in my 50s, it's not the same as when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, on the physical front, but I can still every day have my best effort. I think they talk about it in the 4 agreements, right? Do your best is like one of the agreements, and it's contextual. It's where you're at today, the opportunities you had today. Can you push your limits? And that's something that's really intrinsic to me. That's part of who I am is, hey, how much can I excel in whatever field I'm in right now? And then the last piece, and this is something I've kind of added, to who I choose to be, because I really think is a conscious decision for all of us, is, I want to be someone who's experiencing joy and, pursuing adventure. And I think there's a big difference between joy and happiness. Like I eat chocolate cake, I'm happy. But it's not like that deep seated, like, oh yeah, I'm living, this is meaningful, this is real, this is good. And then I've done really hard things. We both talked about, hitting hard cardio in the morning. I was out pushing my limits this morning, going out for a run here in Salt Lake City. And it was hard, but I finished and I was exhausted. But there's this deep joy that comes with it. It's more than runner's high. It's like, that was good. That was good. That was right. That was me. Definitely not happy. I couldn't even, my heart rate's like 260 beats per minute. But yeah, so when I break it down, you say, who's Phil? Hey, I'm someone who seeks to connect and inspire, do good, push my limits, explore the boundaries, and experience joy. I hope that
So
answers your question.
yeah, it does. I'm just curious. Now that you said that, you talked about the 4 agreements, and joy versus happiness. Are all these strung together in some sort of congruency in your mind? Like I think of a lot of things visually, and so for me, I've got to look at things kind of like down the tunnel, and I've got to string things together for it to make sense of 9 steps ahead. Does that make sense for something? Do you do that, or how do you make sure what you're doing today is congruent with the Phil of 2028, or do you?
Sure. No, I do. I mean, literally, like I have that as part of my, my morning routine. I'll reflect on
Right.
exactly what I shared with you and ask myself, what's this look like today? So to me, when I'm like, who I choose to be is someone who connects with others and inspire, I'm like, that's kind of how I project myself to the world, right? That's how I connect with others. Um, Same with kind of doing good. That's kind of what I'm doing with my family, with those closest to me or around me. Where can I have the maximum positive impact? That pushing my limits, like that's something that's me, that's internal, that's only I can do that with myself. But it for me, the vision, I don't know if that answers your question, but the way I look at it is there's who I am to the world around me, kind of the professional version of me, which is to connect and inspire. um, then there's who I am across the board, just kind of someone who is seeking to do good. And then internally, who am I? Hey, I'm pushing my limits. I'm seeking to experience joy, whether that's my hardest day on earth or, where things are just going swimmingly. Um, so again, it's sort of a external perspective and then shifting to in, and it kind of pivots back and forth.
So before the world sees the Phil today, the successful Phil, the one who's out there and you're, teaching CEOs and high level people how to win and survive, was there a mess internally that you were quietly surviving? Something that you were, because you're a survivor, right? You're someone who will not quit in my view of you. But I think we all have things that we quietly try to struggle through and find. Was there something like that for you? And was there a turning point in your life that you're like, this is the point that no one knows about, no one sees, but something that you reflect on?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all probably have kind of the catalog of failures, right, in our head, and the hardships and the things we battled with, right? Some are open and other people see and know, and then others are internal, and maybe those closest to us hear and find out about them, or maybe it just stays with you your entire life. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was, and it's not like, man, I was a dumpster fire in the back of a train wreck, and
Right.
then all of a sudden I had a magic aha moment, got all figured out. I mean, yeah, I think in its own way, every day carries its own battles, and you know, it's a matter of fact, when I coach people, every now and again, I'll have someone who, like, they're firing on all cylinders, personally, professionally, they're just maxing out the limit. And I'm like, this is awesome. Embrace it, enjoy it, ride that momentum, but just remember, it's a gift. Tomorrow, life can punch you in the face. And I mean, I think we've both been there, right? Like, where you just
Yeah.
get, you just get sucker punched. Say the things closest to you are taken from you. You're like, whoa, what just happened? Um, so yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had, I was a runaway kid when I started this whole game. Runaway kid, high school dropout. No fault of my family either, though. It wasn't like I had a good excuse. I just was a knucklehead, and I made you know, countless bad decisions, kind of growing up. Now, I was lucky. I kind of stumbled my way into the military, and they hammered a lot of that out of me. It was this point where, I needed that structure, that discipline, that leadership, that failure wasn't an option. They could care less what my backstory was, what my motivations were. They're like, you are going to conform to this block. And I did. And that's what I needed at that time. And I think that kind of shook me out of this, pretty lousy pattern of behavior and thoughts I had built up about myself. Because we all tell ourselves a narrative. And I think my early life narrative was kind of like, I'm going nowhere. I'm just gonna float around and do the easy wrong over the hard right, and see where it gets me. Like I said, luckily stumbled into the right organization to get things straight.
So let me ask you this. So based on what you just said, which is very interesting, I think it's safe to say that many of us have low points in our lives, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
in business, and I'm sure that you see people that are having their little pity parties, and you're maybe thinking to yourself, dude, you don't have it that bad. Like you are
Yeah.
creating your own chaos in your own. You're boiling in your own misery that you've created because you can just make a decision to get out, right? But
Hmm.
what is the version that you see? Like I think of like when I've had challenges, and I realized there was a version of me that had a belief that caused me to do that. Have you ever looked at yourself, or even maybe people that you coach and help, that you see a version of them and beliefs that they're holding that is a pattern? That makes
You're
sense. Is
talking
my
about
question?
almost like a destructive pattern, or a self, like there's a
It's a
version
it's
of
a
self that
yeah,
kind of.
like they're believing something about either themselves or exterior circumstances, and they have a belief, and maybe it's an excuse, and
Mhm.
maybe you had that when you were younger, and you can look back at that. But do you see a common thread with people that have these belief patterns that is the version of them today that when they've changed and they've done an about face and they
Yeah.
become a new person, like you said, maybe that was you, that the belief in themselves has changed?
Yeah, no, I love that question because I think there's a lot of goodness to it. I think there's a couple patterns I see in folks. First off is just the mindset, right? Victim mindset, woe is me, this happened to me. Why? That feeling is totally corrosive and unhelpful, and it totally disempowers you, right? And I'm not saying that people are dealt different cards in life. Some people are dealt a pretty lousy deck. But if you sit there and you look at your crappy cards and you're like, this sucks, man, I'm never going to be able to do anything with this. The more you fixate on that, the less you're going to be able to do. Versus it's like, all right, how do I play the hell out of what I got? So if you have that victim mindset, the woe is me, for whatever reason, right? It might have been bad decisions you made in the past. It might have been the circumstances you were born into. It might have been that freaking curveball way out in left field that just clocked you, that you did nothing to deserve. But if you sit there and you fixate on the poor me and I'm a victim and why me, and my challenge is why not you? Like, life, no one ever said this game was fair. And the
Right.
longer you're sitting there and feeling bad for yourself, the less you're moving forward and taking action. So I think that's one thing, kind of the victim mindset versus someone who's kind of got like a warrior mindset or a fighter mindset. Like, okay, it is what it is. Now I'm gonna deal with it, take it for what it is, and try to take action to move things forward. Gosh, I had three things in my head, and then I got all fixated on the mindset piece and got excited.
Well, and I'm gonna tap that mindset in a second, but I'm just curious, based on your experience, and this is a great question for you, is the warrior mindset always the answer?
I guess it depends how you define warrior, right? If you're pugnacious, you're always looking for a fight, looking for a battle. I think that can be pretty destructive. It's also exhausting.
Right.
I use the warrior and the victim as two different mindsets because they're such polar opposites. One commiserates about the misery they're in, and the other embraces the suck and attacks it. But no, I don't. So it kind of depends how you depict a warrior. Like I think kind of aggressive, very action oriented. Heavy bias for action versus thinking and planning. And that's like a stereotype in my head. Someone who's been in the military, I know there's a ton of planning that goes into anything you see happening, at least if it happens right. But no, I think there's times where you do have those periods in your life, and actually, I'm building out this curriculum for an upcoming program, and part of it is about timing. Like, hey, when's the time when you're not fighting, you're not battling, you're not pushing hard, where you kind of take a breath and you shore up what you have. Like, let me assess where I'm at. Let me make sure my foundation's rock solid before I push forward, and I got things in place. Um, what I call that the warrior mindset, maybe not, but it's kind of this it's almost like an intentional pause, right? Versus
Yeah.
let me take stock, make sure I'm grounded, make sure I'm going the right way before I start pushing again. And I think that's totally okay.
Now, obviously, coming from the military, and when I say success, obviously we can look at success in many different ways, right? We can look at it from a military perspective, from a health perspective, financial perspective. But let's just take the financial side. When you started basically pivoting to becoming an entrepreneur, right? From the
Yep.
military, um, was there beliefs that you had about success that were completely wrong and maybe almost ruined you because you had a certain perspective on what success was that wasn't even close to being true or correct?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that tied into the second kind of self-defeating belief or behavior I have, and that was kind of a lack of self-worth or lack of confidence. Like I was very confident in my ability in the military, the lieutenant colonel and special operations. Like I knew that job, I was competent at it, I had a track record, I had credibility. When I pivoted into the leadership space, I knew I was good at leading a certain environment, but I wasn't sure how it transferred. And so there was a little bit of self doubt like, why would someone who is a CEO of a $1.4 billion logistics company want to work with a guy who, on paper, he was in the Army for 22 years? So what? Like, what's that guy know about anything to help me? And so I started telling myself that narrative a bit, which is wildly unhelpful. So I actually undervalued a lot of my services, and it was teammates in the space and others. I actually had someone a few weeks ago, they're like, you forgot a zero on the end of what you're asking here. And they were a high net worth individual, and they're like, when I look at some of your pricing, I almost wonder, like, is he not that good? Why is he charging that? And so and when I first began, I was even less so. My goal was to basically don't lose money. That was like, there's nothing about being profitable. There's nothing about growth. There's nothing about scaling. I've never really been a money motivated person, but I low valued myself because I thought I didn't have credibility, and I questioned my worth in this space. And I had people, those friends you trust and love who speak truth to power, and they're like, hey, yeah, you need to kind of pull your head out, and you need to recognize that you bring a lot of value to this space, and you need to charge accordingly. Like, this is ridiculous.
It's interesting you say that, and I bring this up because I'm a big believer that every day we are selling ourselves, right? We are either selling someone on who we are, or they are selling us on who we are. But
Yeah.
somebody is getting sold in a conversation. You have almost 14 kids. And
Yeah,
you may
you
have a
lose
couple
count
bits.
after a while.
Yeah, you may have a couple under the cushions or something. But either you are selling them on to clean their room and to do their chores, or they are selling you on why they don't want to. But in every conversation, someone is getting sold.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of times we sell ourselves short. We could say, we use this mask and say, I'm being humble. I don't want to be pompous. But I don't think that's true. I think that's a lie that we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better, because I think it's a matter of, and again, I'm not a psychologist, but I think a lot of it is a matter of rejection. We don't,
Hmm.
the last thing we want to do is put ourselves out there, our worth, open up our innards, and get rejected for that. And we tie, and not that we should, but we do, we tie our self-worth to our bank account a lot of times, to
Yep.
what we tie that to it, which I'm sure in the military that had nothing to do with it. And now you're going into a new realm, a new world where the currency, I would imagine, I've not been in the military, but I would imagine a lot of that is the currency is trust, is
Hmm.
is the capital that you use in the military. And here there's a deficit of trust. And especially if you come in as I don't want to say a coach, but we'll just say, use that word. You're at a trust deficit, like me coaching clients. We're at a trust deficit because of predecessors before us. They
Yep.
don't know us, but so we have to sell them on the idea of why we are better, or who we are, whatever the case may be. And it's interesting because the past experiences that we bring to the table is what we are selling them and what they're buying. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, it's actually real similar to a conversation I had. I think it was late last week, but same thing. Where someone who, and I was working on executive coaching with them, and we were sort of sensing it out. And yeah, I mean, literally what you bought, they were kind of transposing their past experiences, which weren't all positive, on the potential of our future relationship. And it was on me to kind of sell, well, what do you bring that's different? I mean, it's you all go through the same basic training, you have the same basic backgrounds, which is not true, but it's an assumption.
Right.
And yeah, it's the exact scenario you described.
So let me ask you this, that inner voice that we all have, right? That North Star, whatever we want to call it. What does it tell you now? Right? You're a couple years more senior, you know what you're doing, you've got your groove. What does it tell you now that it didn't tell you back then? Maybe the day you got out of the military, which was you were listening to a different record. You were listening to
Yeah.
different things. So what is it telling you now that did not say that?
Yeah, I think now is a whole lot more confident, really, and seeing the value. And a lot of that is because you look at the experiences and sort of the track record of success. I can go, okay, I've worked with multiple, Fortune 100, very, very high end, big companies that I've worked with. I've worked with, professional athletics. I've, still work with emergency services and special operations. I've worked with, plenty of businesses ranging from the single person startup to, like I said, I mean, all the way up to some of the bigger names out there. And I go, okay, if what I'm sharing with people, if the work I'm doing with them resonates on all these levels, and they all go, yeah, this produces this results in performance, this results in profit, this results in retention, whatever they're working on. I'm like, well, damn, I guess, you know, what worked that I thought, I came at it from a lens of, oh, this worked in special operations, but will this really work in other organizations? And by the way, I want to be clear, like nothing I do or work with people is like magically invented, it's the same principles that have been around for thousands of years. It's
Sure.
just a matter of how you translate them and communicate them and implement them. But back in the day, I was like, well, I know this worked in this realm, but I don't know if it'll work in these others. Now I'm like, hell yeah, it works. It debatably might even work better in some situations, just because of organizational structural differences between, the military, where you have a 2 or 3 year turnover in leaders, and a company where someone's there for, 15, 20, 30 years in a
Decades,
leadership
yeah.
role. Yep.
Now, listen, I think it's safe to say, as an entrepreneur and your background in the military, it's every day we get up and fight, right? I mean, I think entrepreneurs are built for battle, not for celebration. That's
Yep.
my perspective. And I think every day we get up and fight is probably not the right word. I think we are. we are ready to go at it every day, and I'm not sure what word we want to attach to that, because I think saying fight every day is kind of assuming there's always a battle. There's not always a battle,
Sure.
but what do you get up for every day? Like what gets you up and gets you pushing? Because you have a lot of success, you have a lot of accolades, but you, like me, we get up every day and we hit it. What is
Yep.
your reason?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think a lot of it comes back to what I shared before, right? It's like, hey, I want to push my limits. I want to explore the boundaries, explore the edges, and see what's out there. Whether that's growing, my business and the impact I can have with others, or it's on a more personal front. It's going, okay, what's today bring? How can I advance? How can I grow? How can I be a better version of myself when I go to bed tonight? Am I going to be a better version of myself personally and professionally, or am I going to stay the same, or am I going to have regressed? And when I go to bed, I want to tell myself as I reflect on the day, and I literally have like an evening routine I kind of do. When I reflect on the day, I want to be like, hell yeah, sometimes you have scars, but it's like, man, I pushed it and I learned and I grew today. That was really hard, but I am better for the experience. And then there's some days where like, man, I was kind of a slack ass today, and it's
Yeah.
and I honestly don't feel like I ever have a day where I stay exactly the same. I feel like I'm either growing a little bit, or maybe you backslide a little. Um, and truly, there are different times. There is a time to rest, there is a time to consolidate, but I think there's even growth within those times. So to me, what gets me up is, hey, am I pushing my limits? Am I growing? Am I exploring the edges? Am I being proactive or reactive? And that fires me up. And I really do, like, I get my biggest sense of worth working with others and watching them succeed. I mean, that's literally my whole business around, is how do I help others, whatever arena they're in, excel. And so if I get that opportunity and I do it well, I'm like, heck yeah, that was a good day. Yesterday I told you about, we had the coaching cast. That was an awesome day. I got an email from the
Yeah,
guy while we were talking here, and I was like, man, I
that's
know we're
awesome.
both better for that experience. And then there's days where I don't have that on the deck, and I'm like, okay, so now I'm in hunt mode. Where do I find that person who we can connect with, open up with, and both kind of excel?
So you're chasing a version, maybe a version of success, we'll say. What is that version of success, that, like, how would you quantify your version of your hunt, your successful version of Phil? Because that's for other people.
Yep.
But what is your version of success?
Mine is, hey, am I finishing on empty? Did I push my, again, go, and I know I sound like a broken record, Steve, so I
No,
apologize,
it's
but it's like,
no, it's
I, can I say I did my best? And again, we'll go back to the four agreements we were talking about earlier, right? That, did you do your best today? There's different conditions and different situations each day. Tomorrow I'm going up to watch my son play football up at Montana State. That version of my best is going to look very different today, from where I have this with you, and then multiple meetings after. Um, but it's almost kind of like, sort of almost like grading yourself. I know I had a hell of a run this morning. I know I had a great workout after my run, which is never easy. And so I'm like, okay, physically, I've checked some boxes there. I feel good about that.
yeah.
On a professional level, as long as I execute everything, to the best of my ability, I'm going to, at the end of the day, be like, yeah, that was an A plus. And I feel good about that. Like, that gives me value. That gives me a lot of purpose. So,
So, like, for someone like you, you've obviously, you've sacrificed everything for freedom, freedom for yourself, for the country, for other people. Um, would you say the version of you today, would you define freedom different than you did maybe back in the military?
yeah, yeah. I don't know if I define freedom differently. I mean, there it was very much
Maybe your
kind of
freedom, your freedom.
yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest. This is one of those things we talked about. He's like, I'm going to ask you some questions. You might wonder where I'm going with it. I'm like, yes, I am. I, yeah, it's not something that's front and center on my mind a whole lot. I guess because I feel like I do have it. Like, to me, it's almost less about freedom and more about growth. Meaning, I have that latitude to explore, to expand, to kind of grow into the unknown. I guess that's kind of how I see freedom now. Um, and then again, going back to the earlier point of having 8 kids and a wife who's a resident in an emergency room, I don't really have a ton of freedom. I always got to be I got to go to a high school volleyball game this afternoon. That's a no miss engagement.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah. I mean,
I mean,
I
that
don't know
could
if I
be
answered
being
you there.
well. No, I think listen, being with the kids is a form of freedom, right? I mean, that's
Oh
it's
yeah,
not freedom of cutting ties. It could be a different definition, right? Do we? I guess what my question is do we rewrite the definitions as we get older, right? We kind of you and I talked about working out. Our definition of a hard workout today is probably a different definition of what we would say a hard workout was in our 20s, right? So we've rewritten the word hard workout to define it different. So when we think of freedom, before freedom could have been getting in a VW bug and banging on down to Mexico for a weekend. Now freedom could be going fishing for 3 days and taking your kids or going to watch your son play football. So we've changed, right? We've changed based on our environment. I think we all do. I don't think anybody stays the same. It's kind of like saying like I still use the yellow pages. You're gonna be like, bro, like that ship sailed. Yeah, but that's my
yeah.
definition of it. It's like
Oof.
we have to evolve as people. Do
Yeah,
you
we got to
agree?
talk about that. We got to talk about the yellow pages thing. Yeah, you know what? I totally, actually, I do agree. And I appreciate you going back and give that context. Because, yeah, I think my freedom, when I was in the military, and I was both enlisted and officer, but a lot of it was almost more like conceptual freedom. You had very, very little personal freedom in the military. I mean, literally, there was
Right.
times where, for 3 months at a stretch, I'm not even talking about deployments. I'm talking about the U.S., but like you're on a short leash because if something happened in the world, you need to be ready to jump in and help out. Um, now I think a lot of my freedom is more about you have the freedom of where I'm going to allocate my time and resources. I get the freedom to choose my priorities. Is it I'm pushing the limits and growing the business today, or is it I'm taking a pause and grabbing coffee and breakfast with my wife before she goes on shift? Is it you know I have the freedom to go, am I going to go to my daughter's high school volleyball game at 5 today, or am I going to work on some stuff I'm writing? And it's almost more I get to allocate my time and resources as I see fit, but it's on me. I have that freedom, but I know when I exercise that freedom and align it with the values and the purpose that I've defined for myself, then that's when the freedom feels good, right? And that's where you fall back, that's where the joy comes from.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that, and again, I say this because you and I are of the same age, and sometimes we reflect back on our lives that we'd like to maybe impart on other people that we've learned maybe truths or maybe our truths that we wish someone told us about earlier. Do you ever have anything that's a truth now that maybe is in your mind that you're like, man, I wish I would have known this 10 years ago, 20 years ago as a teenager? Anything that if someone's watching this, there's a truth that you can impart. You've seen a lot of things, you've done a lot of things, you've had successes, failures, all that, but these truths don't change, just our perception of them. Anything
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I probably didn't really learn this till I was in like probably early 30s, is like the failure to try. We all have this inner critic, depending on our background, that has a certain volume level. Mine was really loud because of my upbringing, because of my experience. I didn't try so many things that I should have gone for. So the only regrets I have in life are the things I didn't go for. I don't regret when I went for something and got injured or failed or screwed up. I learned from those. I mean, I'm not excited. We always want to succeed, but I really think only failure is the failure to try. So to that person out there, to that 20-year-old who's like, oh, maybe I should apply for this school. There's no way I'd ever get in, but maybe I should. And to me, to them, failure is if you don't try. Like, and it's not just you're throwing a dart at the dartboard blindfolded hoping it hits. It's make an intelligent try, like set conditions for success. But to me, really, go for it, and then just the power of not quitting. I worked with people that were physical and intellectual superstars, and I've always been a quote unquote good enough. I met the minimum standard, but my superpower was I did not quit. If I latched onto something and didn't quit, like it was going to happen. It might take longer. It might be harder. I might finish with my tricep pulled off my elbow, like we talked about. But I'm going to finish, and I'm going to get it. I'm going to attain it, and that stick to itness not just in my experience, but what I've seen just across the board when I look at people who've achieved long-term success as leaders in pick your field, um, athletics, business, military, whatever, the ones who stick to it and do not let go. And I've fought people like this before too, overseas. Like if they stick to it and they don't waver, like they can win the long game. Doesn't matter what technology, what tactics, it's that grit of sticking to it is unbeatable. I mean, I really believe that.
I remember hearing a saying, and it went something along these lines that the 85-year-old person on their deathbed never regrets the life they live. They only regret the life they never lived. And
Yeah,
you think about how many people, sadly, on their deathbed, they never will say, man, I just wish I made more money, as
yeah,
opposed to, I wish I had more time with my family. I wish I had more experiences. No one's ever going to say, like, man, I just had so much fun. I had too much fun in my life. I don't think
yeah,
you're going to hear that too often, right? So,
yeah.
to the younger versions, to people that are maybe starting out, or maybe they're just, our age, but they're having some challenges. If somebody was going to take an action today, right, based on your experience, is there anything you used to say, like, this should be your action, whether it's tying your shoe, whether it's walking around the block, whether it's I am statements, affirmations? In your mind, what should be that thing that they do that's so simple but is vital?
You're saying like if they had to do one action
Yeah.
to you know, yeah, I think a big thing is it's silly, it's little, everyone talks about it, but start your day off right. Like, be able to tell yourself, answer the question of why am I on this side of the grass?
Hmm.
And who do I want to be today? It's kind of give yourself the 5 W's. Why am I here? Who do I want to be today? Who do I want to be around? How do I want to act? And what do I want to accomplish? If you can answer those in the simplest forms at the beginning of each day, and then kind of frame some sort of mental plan of, okay, well, now let's do it. That's wickedly powerful because most people get up, snooze their iPhone like 3 times, then they look at social media, then they, stumble into the shower, have a lousy breakfast, go into work, and they're in react mode all day. They don't take those 10 minutes of just like, whew, let me take a breath. What's today about? Because today could be your last day, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be a shame if you closed out and you're like, man, I didn't live this right. I just kind of went with the flow, and it's so just asking yourself, like, why am I on this side of the grass? What's success look like today? Who do I want to be? How do I want to think, speak, and act? And what am I going to accomplish when I come back to bed tonight?
Love that. Yeah, personally, my ritual, I get up pretty early, 3:45. Um,
That's
I get
that's
up.
ridiculously early. I'm just
I
gonna
know,
say
I
that.
know. Yes, I agree. And people say you must love mornings. I'm like, no, loving something has nothing to do with what I have to do. They're not correlated at all. It's what I have to do. So I get up, I do my meditation, I turn on my phone, meditate, then I do my I am statements, and then I get my stuff and I walk out the door and go to the gym. That's kind of my
Love it.
morning ritual. That's my habit, right? And so that's what sets my day. And as hard as it is, and sometimes I will admit I'm not always the best. I emails, phone, any of those things that have to do with work, I leave it alone. I really try to disconnect that because I know I'm going to have all day of that. I'm not going to have all day at the gym. And
Yeah.
so that's the time to focus. And I just think, you obviously are someone who's strict, focused, diligent, and I'm sure that you have many truths that you live by, as I do. And I think that when you start to see people that we'll say success, and that's measured in many different ways, whether it's fulfillment or financial, physical, whatever it is. I think we have truths that we live by, right? We have things that we have non-negotiables. So just as we kind of wrap this up, are there any non-negotiables that you live by that when no one's watching, when Phil's by himself, laying his head down at the pillow at night, is there something that you live by that you would never ever deviate from?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I have kind of maxims or like I wouldn't call them truths to myself. I mean, for me, I've got some values that literally every day I'll kind of go through and not ask myself, but be like, hey, this is how I want to govern my thoughts, my words and my actions today intentionally, regardless of how I feel, regardless of the circumstances. These are kind of my hallmarks. And that's faith, first off, going, I'm here for a reason. There's a bigger plan for my life, and my role is to execute it. It's integrity, congruence between my deed and word, not just with other people, but also with myself. And that second one's a big one, right? How often do we kind of overcommit to things and then we let balls drop because, we sort of lack integrity with ourselves and being honest. Discipline's a big thing for me. It's kind of trust the process, stay the course, do the hard things first. Love is a big one, and to me, that's action. It's not emotion. It's not words. It's not the feeling. It's what am I doing, and how am I putting other people before myself, and being intentional about that. And it's great. A lot of times there is a feeling. There are words that go with it, but it's an action at the end of the day. And then growth is something huge to me, which is what am I doing to get 1% better every day, every way. Although, as you pointed out, we're getting older. So on the physical piece, I'm pushing maybe 1% harder. I don't know if I'm actually getting better. And I've got a question for all the normal people out there who don't get up at 3:45. What time do you go to bed at night to get up that early? Please tell me it's like 4 in the afternoon.
No, it's not. I go to bed. I'm normally in bed by 9 o'clock.
Okay.
9 o'clock is kind of my done. 8:30, I'm kind of winding down. But as you know, being an airline pilot, I'm in London right now. Sometimes I'll
Oh,
be up
wow.
for 32 hours. I had 2 hours sleep. I got up. I wanted to meet with you, do this thing, and I've got stuff I have non-negotiables that I have to do. But yeah, I'm not a morning person. It's funny you were talking about how things change. I keep seeing those Skechers commercials where you can slip your feet into the shoe. I'm like, those actually seem like a good
I
idea.
need those.
I mean,
Yeah.
what colors do they have is my only question.
Yes. Okay. We're on the same
So,
sheet of music. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, man, I wonder if they have multiple colors so I can wear just nice. Can I wear these in my pilot uniform? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking out of the box here.
Do they make these in patent leather?
Can I wear these out? I mean,
Yeah.
this has a lot of runway here.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
Phil, man, listen, brother, I love talking to you, and what you're doing is nothing short of amazing. And I know you change lives, and you have an event coming up. Do you mind sharing what that is and what you do? And obviously, if people want to get in touch with you and learn how they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who goes to stonewatertraining.com, that's all one word, can kind of see our site a little more about what we do and some of the events we're putting on. We do have one coming up at the end of October, the 22nd and 24th of October. Folks will be flying into and out of Salt Lake City, and it is all about leading yourself and your team into the unknown. And there's a lot of great content, a lot of great exercise, a lot of great discussion that'll be coming out of it, and a chance for these leaders to kind of get to know people from different fields and connect and elevate. But you and I both know, like, I've read a lot of books. I've been to a lot of conferences. I've heard some great speakers. I forget about 98% of that, but we remember
Yeah.
what we feel. We remember what we do. So we're going to, head on down to Southern Utah. We're going to go in the Canyonlands. We're going to do something called canyoneering, which is where you're dropping into these deep slot canyons. We have professional guides, some world-class people. They're not just going to be having people do it. They're going to be showing people how to do it themselves. And then we're going to be navigating in this trippy, otherworldly terrain that is down near Zion National Park. And we'll be climbing out. And that's going to be blended all in with the content. We take care of everything. But the theme is, number one, when you lead into the unknown, it is, hey, it starts with you leading yourself, right? Do you have a good foundation? Is the timing right to push your limits? Secondly, it's, hey, how do I lead my team? Are they ready? How do I make sure they're safe, they're confident, they understand the vision, they understand why we're doing it, they know the plan, they know the risks, and they know what our contingencies are, and they trust me and I trust them. And then the last part is, hey, how do I build up that resilience, that adaptability when I get lost, when I hit an obstacle, when I fail? Do I just sit there and go, I failed and that's it? Or do I try new things? Do I explore? Knock me down 9 times, I'll get up 10, trying to build that mindset. And then at the end of the day, going, wait a sec, we had a plan, we had a vision. This actually might have been the wrong vision, the wrong plan. When do you know when to pivot, when to change? So we're going to be doing that all in Southern Utah. And to folks who are like, oh, that sounds cool, but I'm not leading anything into the unknown. I'd argue anyone in leadership role or any human who's trying to grow and develop has that aspect of, to grow, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to go into the unknown. You're going to push your limits a bit. This is just really working on arming people with those skills and actually having a framework to do it intentionally. You talk about what would you share with others, intentionally versus kind of just going into it and let Jesus take the wheel. I hope it works out. Which
Yeah.
I've done that before, and it doesn't always end well. So yeah, absolutely. Any one of your listeners who want to come out, we actually have a high stakes. We're doing a discount for any of your folks who want to come join us. So
Awesome. And we'll have
I'll shoot
the
that link.
code in the show notes as well. It's funny you mentioned something about emotions and feelings. I always, in sales, nobody ever remembers the price, but they remember how they felt when they
Yeah,
purchase something. And when you're, and again, even buying this experience, I mean, that's what we do, right? We're buying experiences. That's all life is. And it's the emotional feeling that we get from this experience. And I think that anyone who's interested in doing something like this would be very wise, very smart, and come out a better person, right? And not just the skills, but the camaraderie and everything that you're going to learn from it is by far. I mean, how do you put a price on that? I don't think you can. The relationships.
yeah. The connections are amazing. The experience is really special. And what I love is, so I have this framework and this content and these resources to kind of to bring through the experience for people. But every time I do this, if I bring out 6 leaders, 12 leaders, whatever it is, um, people will take away what I intended, but then they will bring something way out of left field too that I had no idea. Something really powerful, really personal, that just the experience kind of opens up to them. I don't know if it's just being under the desert sky at like 11 at night, just looking at the stars and getting a sense of perspective, or where that comes from. But I just love how people walk away from these truly transformed in a kind of evolved version of themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. Phil, brother, it's great to see you, man. Great to have you on. And for those of you that want to get more, we'll have it in the show notes. This is the guy that can teach you a lot of things about life, about experience, about business. Just the list goes on. How to defect from Canada, any of these things. I'm sure he's got the list of everything that you need. So
There it was.
there it was. I had to throw it in there somewhere. I had a sticky on my screen the whole time. Well, guys, and Phil, thanks for being on, brother. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for another amazing episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. We will be back next week for another episode with another amazing guest. And until then, we will see you guys next time. Be safe, be productive, and do something good out there. See ya.